Welcome to the Padre podcast. This is the place where I share my heart and mind because I am a forever student and I would like to graduate in heaven, and I hope you do too. This is Padre podcast episode number 21. 21. So here we are, and today we are going to reflect on the first homily given by Pope Leo XIV during the Mass of his inauguration, the inauguration of his pontificate. You probably are very well aware that I'm super excited about the election of Pope Leo because he was the bishop of my home diocese of Chiclayo in Peru, and my family is super excited about it. In fact, everybody in my home city and my hometown, they are all excited about his election. We're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk specifically about what the Pope said during that first homily of the beginning of his pontificate, because it was a masterpiece of biblical scholarship. You may not know this, but Father Rimaicuna, who is a priest from Chiclayo, Peru, was chosen by Pope Leo to be his personal secretary. And he is a biblical scholar, so I would be surprised if he had something to do with the first homily of the Pope. So something extraordinary happened during that first Mass, and I don't know if you saw it, the Mass of the inauguration of the pontificate, which was held at St. Peter's Square. And so the gospel was proclaimed in Latin and in Greek, which that to me immediately the flags go up, right? Because I get super excited with everything that is related to the ancient manuscripts. And of course, the New Testament was written in Greek. The gospel is John 21, and it happens at the shores of the Sea of Galilee. This is the actual place, and I took this picture, and you can see there the Sea of Galilee, and I celebrated Mass on that place. And so the gospel is the conversation between Jesus and Peter. Peter, do you love me? 3 times. And so we're going to dive deep into what the Holy Father said. But before that, we're going to take a look at what it was like when the gospel was proclaimed in St. Peter's Square in the original language, which is Greek. And it was chanted by the Greek deacon. Let's check it out. So stay tuned. Wasn't that something to see the gospel proclaimed in the original language in which it was written? So I am going to read now what the Holy Father said in his homily. We have to remember first that, I'm going to put my glasses on so that I look smart, is that before the Holy Father gave his homily, the gospel had to be proclaimed in Latin and in Greek, as I mentioned. But before that, the Holy Father had to go below St. Peter's main altar to the actual tomb of St. Peter. So he had prayed already before the very remains of the first pope. Then he came out to the St. Peter's Square. Then the Mass started, then the readings, then the Gospel in both languages. After that, he received the symbols of the pallium, which is this wool special stole that is put on his shoulders, which is the symbol of the weight of the responsibility that he just received. And then he also received the ring of the fisherman. So you can imagine all the feelings that the Holy Father is going through at that particular moment, because the weight of the papacy has been put on him. And then he proceeded to preach, and the preaching was in Italian. Now, I posted the English translation in the most popular paper in our town, which is the bulletin of our parish. So I'm going to read only a portion. This is what the Holy Father said. He wanted to emphasize 2 points, and we're going to focus on one. He said, love and unity. These are the 2 dimensions of the mission entrusted to Peter by Jesus. We see this in today's Gospel, which takes us to the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus began the mission he received from the Father, to be a fisher of humanity in order to draw it up from the waters of evil and death. Walking along the shore, he had called Peter and the other first disciples to be like him, fishers of men. Now, after the resurrection, it is up to them to carry on this mission, to cast their nets again and again, to bring the hope of the gospel into the waters of the world, to sail the seas of life, so that all may experience God's embrace. But how can Peter carry out this task? The gospel tells us that it is possible only because his own life was touched by the infinite and unconditional love of God, even in the hour of his failure and denial. For this reason, when Jesus addresses Peter, the gospel uses the Greek verb Agapao, which refers to the love that God has for us, to the offering of himself without reserve and without calculation. Whereas the verb used in Peter's response describes the love of friendship that we have for one another. Consequently, when Jesus asked Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He is referring to the love of the Father. It is as if Jesus said to him, only if you have known and experienced this love of God, which never fails, will you be able to feed my lambs. Only in the love of God, the Father, will you be able to love your brothers and sisters with that same more, that is, by offering your life for your brothers and sisters. Peter is thus entrusted with this task of loving more and giving his life for the flock. The ministry of Peter is distinguished precisely by this self-sacrificing love. So this is the homily that Holy Father Leo gave on Sunday, May 18 of 2025 at St. Peter's Square, which was the Mass of the beginning of his pontificate as the 267th Pope of the Church. So, let's go into here. So you probably heard that the Holy Father said that the text, the Greek text, when Jesus asks the question, Peter, do you love me? The Pope says, the text uses the Greek verb agapao, while the answer of Peter uses a different verb. Okay? The Pope explains, agapao refers to the love that the Father has for us, while Peter responds with a different verb. He doesn't say which verb it is, but I will tell you which it is. And the answer of Peter is the love of friendship that we have for one another. So Jesus is asking Peter for more, but Peter is not ready for that at this particular moment. So let's dive into the text. Sounds good? So here I have my Bible in John 21, and we're going to explore only 3 verses. John 21, 15, 16, and 17. As you know, there are 3 questions, and we're going to dive into them, okay? When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than this?" In the Greek text is the verb agapao, unconditional love. Peter said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." In the Greek text is not agapao, it's phileo, which is the love of friendship that we have for one another. So as you can see, right in the text at the beginning of this reading, Jesus is asking Peter to love more, but Peter is not ready. Second question. Well, before the second question, Jesus says to Peter, "Feed my lambs." He then said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Agapao, the highest form of love, the way that the Father loves us. He said to him, this is Peter, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." In the Greek text is phileo, the love of friendship, the love that we have for one another. He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, this is Jesus, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" In the third question, the Greek text does not use agapao. It uses phileo. So in other words, Jesus kind of lowers the bar. He comes to the level of Peter. He realizes that at this point, right here at the Sea of Galilee, Peter is not ready. He is not ready to love like the Father does, or like Jesus. So that's why Jesus lowers the bar. "Peter, do you love me?" Phileo. Now, Peter was distressed that Jesus had said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And the narrator here uses also the word phileo, not agapao. And he said to him, this is Peter, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Phileo, the love that we have for one another. Now, as you can see, let's recap. Peter, do you love me? Agapao. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Phileo. No, Peter, do you love me? Agapao. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Phileo. Jesus lowers the bar. Peter, do you love me? Phileo. He was sad that Jesus had said Phileo for the third time. And Peter responded, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Phileo." So you can see the play on words. You don't get to see this in the English text, unfortunately, because we only have one word, and that word is love. The Greek text has 2 different words in order to convey the conversation that is happening right here at the Sea of Galilee between Jesus and Peter. So as you can see, the Holy Father used this first homily, the opening of his pontificate, to explain how within the Greek text itself, Peter at the beginning is being asked to love like the Father, though he is not ready yet. But eventually he will. It will have to pass about 3 decades, because it was in the 60s, so that will be 3 decades later, in Rome, precisely where Pope Leo is receiving the pontificate, precisely there, that's where Peter learned how to love agapao. At the moment of the conversation, he was not ready to love in that way. You see the point? And so Peter is being asked to love more, and it takes him 3 decades to learn that. And boy, he learns that the hard way. Isn't that our experience as well? Now, because, I have the Bible Museum, I figure, what about if we go and take a look at the manuscripts? What do they say? Are they saying exactly what the Pope mentioned during his homily? And the answer is yes. The manuscripts do have these distinctions between the two verbs that are being used at the moment of the conversation between Jesus and Peter. So let's go and check out the most ancient manuscripts and what do they say regarding this play on words between the conversation of Peter and Jesus. Stay tuned. So here I have a little display of some of the most ancient manuscripts, and we are going to dive deep into what they actually say. Actually, we're going to start not with an ancient one, but with the one that I wrote some time ago. This is a manuscript that I wrote in 2021 during the pandemic. I highlighted the words of this particular text because there is a difference between the wording that Jesus used and the wording that Peter used. And so here I have in my sticky notes the difference between the verb agapao, which is the highest form of love, and phileo, which is the love of friendship. Okay? The text is John 21:15 through 17. And here is when Jesus says, Simon, son of John, agapas me. Do you love me more than these? But the highest form of love. And the response of Peter is philo se. I love you, Lord, but I love you with the love of friendship. And then the second time, Jesus asked him, Simon, son of John, agapas me. Do you love me? But the highest form of love. And the response of Peter is philo se. I love you with the love of friendship. And here is where Jesus lowers the bar. Jesus says to Simon, son of John, do you love me with the love of friendship? And Peter was sad that the Lord had asked him for a third time, do you love me? And so he says to him, Lord, Kyrie, you know everything. You know that philose, that I love you, the love of friendship. This is the worship aid of the opening Mass of the Pontificate of Pope Leo XIV. And as you can see, the text is in Latin here. There is a translation in Italian, and there is also the translation into English. Now, the interesting thing is that after the deacon had proclaimed the gospel in Latin, and you see that the text in Latin continues on the next page, the Greek deacon also proclaims the gospel, but in Greek. Here is in the order of worship, this is a worship aid, the text of this passage, but in Greek. This is Codex Sinaiticus, which is one of the oldest manuscripts, is one of the complete oldest Bibles of the world. And so we're going to take a look once again to the very same passage. So here we have when Jesus is saying, Simon, agapas me. Do you love me? The highest form of love. And the response of Peter is philos se. So, I love you, but with the love of friendship. Then Jesus asks again, Simon, son of John, agapas me. So, it is right here, agapas me. So, the highest form of love. And the response of Peter is philos se. So, I love you, but with the love of friendship. The third time, Jesus lowers the bar, philes me, the love of friendship. And so the narrator tells us that Peter was sad because he had been asked for a third time, philos me, or do you love me? And so Peter responds, you know everything. You know that I philos se, that I love you, but with the love of friendship. This is Codex Vaticanus, another of the oldest complete Bibles of the world from the 4th century. It is the most important book of the Vatican archives. They have 17 million books, and this is the most important of them all. So we go to the text again, John 21, 15, 17. So we begin with the first question of Jesus, Agapas me, the highest form of love, and the response of Peter is Philos se. So I love you, but with a love of friendship. Once again, the second question, Agapas me. Do you love me with the highest form of love? And the response of Peter is Philo se. I love you with a love of friendship. The third time, Jesus lowers the bar, and Jesus says, Phi leis me. Do you love me with a love of friendship? And the narrator tells us that Simon was sad that Jesus had asked him, do you love me for the first time, Phi leis me? And the answer of Peter the third time is, you know everything, you know that Philo se. You know that I love you with the love of friendship. Now we are looking at Codex Alexandrinus, which is also one of the most complete copies of the Bible from the 4th and 5th century, a Greek text. And on this page is the beginning of the conversation. So the first question of Jesus is to Peter, Aga pas me. Do you love me with unconditional love, the highest form of love? And in order to see the answer, we have to flip the page. Now that we have flipped the page, we see the answer of Peter. The answer is Philo se. I love you, Lord, with the love of friendship. The second question of Jesus is Agapas me. Do you love me with the highest form of love? And the answer of Peter is Philo se. Yes, I love you, but with the love of friendship. The third question of Jesus is when he lowers the bar. Philes me. And of course, the narrator tells us that Peter was sad because Jesus had asked him, Phi leis me. Do you love me? For the third time. And the answer of Peter is, you know everything. You know that I Phi lo se. That I love you with the love of friendship. So that's Codex Alexandrinus. Now we are looking at the Gutenberg Bible, which was the very first Bible printed with a machine. The text is in Latin, and so the text is based on the translation that St. Jerome did around 1,000 years before this Bible was printed, but it is the same Latin text that was proclaimed at the Mass of Pope Leo. So let's take a look at the text, because even the Latin text makes a difference between the two verbs, but this time in Latin. For the highest form of love, it uses the word diligere, which means, do you hold me in the highest esteem? And for the love of friendship, uses the word amare. And so let's take a look at what the actual text says. And so the first question is the one of Jesus when he asks Peter, Diliges me? Do you love me with the highest form of love, highest esteem? And the answer of Peter is amo te, the love of friendship. Then the second question of Jesus is, Diliges me? Do you love me with the highest form of love? Do you hold me in the highest esteem? And the answer of Peter is amo te, the love of friendship. And the last question of Jesus, that's when he lowers the bar, and so he says, amas me? Do you love me? And so we hear from the narrator that Peter was sad that Jesus had asked Peter for a third time, amas me? And so Jesus receives the answer of Peter, who says, Lord, you know everything. You know that amo te, that I love you with the love of friendship. How about that? Isn't that something? So the Pope mentions this play on words of the verbs agapao, and without mentioning filio, but he does mention the love of friendship in one verse of his first homily of the opening Mass of his pontificate. It is a master class in biblical scholarship. And so that means that we have to pay attention, because the text underneath is telling us something about the ministry of Peter, but it also is telling us something about our journey as followers of the Lord, because we too are being called to love. When the Lord says to Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" he is also asking us to love him as well. So now that we have explored all the manuscripts, we are going to read once again the words of Pope Leo XIV. This is what he said. How can Peter carry out this task of being a fisher of men? The Gospel tells us that it is possible only because his own life was touched by the infinite and unconditional love of God, even in the hour of his failure and denial. For this reason, when Jesus addresses Peter, the Gospel uses the Greek verb Agapao, which refers to the love that God has for us, to the offering of himself without reserve and without calculation, whereas the verb used in Peter's response describes the love of friendship that we have for one another. Consequently, when Jesus asked Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" he is referring to the love of the Father. It is as if Jesus said to him, "Only if you have known and experienced this love of God, which never fails, will you be able to feed my lambs." Only in the love of God the Father you will be able to love your brothers and sisters with that same more. That is, by offering your life for your brothers and sisters. Peter is thus entrusted with the task of loving more and giving his life for the flock. And that's exactly the same love that Pope Leo is being asked by Jesus to love us, the Church, to give completely his life in service for the Church of Christ. And that's why we rejoice. And so, there you have it. This is an explanation of a couple of paragraphs of the homily of Pope Leo XIV. May the Lord bless our Pope, and may he guide us in the journey of learning how to love Jesus more. God bless you. But before I let you go, I would like to show you what the Gospel sounds in Latin. And so, here you have it. Have a wonderful day.
Simon Ioannis, diligis me plus his, dicitei, etiam Domine, tucis quia amo te, dicitei, pace agnos meos, dicitei iterum secundo, Simon Ioannis, diligis me, ait illi, etiam Domine, tucis quia amo te, dicitei, pace oves meas, dicitei tertio, Simon Ioannis, amas me, contristatus es Petrus, quia dixitei tertio, amas me, et dicitei, Domine, tu omnia scis, tu cognoscis quia amo te, dicitei, pace oves meas,